The galactic Concorde vessels hung in Earth's sky like massive metal clouds. There were hundreds of them, each bigger than anything humans had ever built. They blocked the sun over cities across the planet, casting strange shadows over frightened people below. Admiral Ta-1 stood tall on the bridge of the TES Defiance, Earth's largest battleship. His face showed no fear, though his heart raced. He watched the glowing map in front of him, where red dots marked each enemy ship. There were too many to count. "Admiral, they're calling again," said Lieutenant Yunji. Her hands moved fast over her control panel. She looked up at Ta-1, waiting for orders. "Let them wait," Ta-1 said, his voice firm. His uniform felt tight around his neck. 3 days ago, the aliens had arrived without warning. They called themselves the Galactic Concorde, a group of species who ruled most of the known galaxy. Their message was simple: Earth must join them and obey their rules, or they would destroy all human life. The Terran Empire, Earth's united government, had given its answer yesterday. No, humans would not bow. Tai-1 walked to the window and looked out at the alien ships. They were beautiful in a terrible way, with smooth curves and lights that shifted color like oil on water. Earth's ships looked like toys beside them. "Sir, our sensors show they're powering weapons," said another officer. Tai-1 nodded. This was it, the moment that would decide if humanity had a future. "Get me Director He-Jun." The screen lit up with He-Jun's tired face. The director of Earth's Secret Defense Research hadn't slept in days. "Admiral, we're ready. Project Nightfall is operational." Project Nightfall, the last hope. For 20 years, Earth's best scientists had worked in hidden labs deep underground. They studied the strange energy between stars, dark energy, that made up most of the universe but couldn't be seen. They learned to control it, to use it as a weapon. No one in the Concorde would expect it. No one in the Concorde would be ready for it. "Stand by," Tai-1 said. "Wait for my signal." On the main screen, a Concorde officer appeared. He looked almost human, but with blue-tinted skin and eyes too large and round. "This is your final chance, Terrans. Surrender now." Tai-1 stood straight, hands behind his back. "The Terran Empire declines your offer. We will remain free." The alien's face showed what might have been pity. "Then you have chosen extinction." The screen went dark. All ships reporting enemy targeting systems locked on, Yunji said, her voice shaking slightly. "They're firing." Tai-1 pressed the button on his wrist. "Initiate Nightfall. Now." Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in bunkers on every continent, massive machines hummed to life. They began pulling energy from the fabric of space itself. Outside, the Concorde weapons fired. Beams of energy brighter than the sun streaked toward Earth's cities. They never hit. The space around Earth changed. It rippled like water, then darkened. Black tendrils, like living shadows, reached out from nowhere. They wrapped around the Concorde ships, gently at first, then tightening. "It's working," whispered Unji. On the screens, they watched as the mighty Concorde fleet struggled against the dark energy web. Ships tried to fire again, but their weapons died. They tried to flee, but couldn't move. The largest ships fought the hardest, their engines glowing white-hot as they strained against the invisible force. Then, one by one, they began to collapse. The dark energy crushed them, folding metal and machinery as if they were made of paper. The destruction was silent and terrible. No explosions, no fire, just massive warships crumpling like empty cans, their lights flickering out as they died. "My God," someone said on the bridge. In minutes, most of the Concorde fleet was gone. Only a few small ships at the edges escaped the dark energy's reach. One of them was a diplomatic shuttle. Its pilot was Ambassador Du Yun of the Concorde, who had been sent to negotiate Earth's surrender. As his shuttle fled toward the safety of deep space, Du Yun sent one last message. It played on screens and speakers across Earth. "You have no idea what you've done. The Concord has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. We have crushed hundreds of rebellions. But never have we seen power like this. You could have joined us peacefully. Instead, you chose violence. The ambassador's alien face showed something humans could recognize: fear. The Concord will return. The architects who guide us will not allow this defiance. The galaxy will remember this day not as your victory, but as the beginning of your doom. The message ended. The ambassador's ship vanished into faster-than-light travel. On the bridge of the Defiance, silence fell. They had won, but at what cost? What had they started? Admiral Taiwan looked at the screens showing Earth below. In cities worldwide, people were coming out of shelters, pointing up at the sky where crushed alien ships now drifted like strange new moons. "Send word to all military commands," Taiwan said. "The immediate threat is over, but we need to prepare. If the ambassador is telling the truth, we've just made enemies of the most powerful force in the galaxy." Lieutenant Yun Ji nodded. "Sir, what do we do with the alien wrecks?" Taiwan's eyes narrowed. "We learn from them. We take their technology. We get stronger." He looked out at the stars. "Because they will be back, and next time, they'll be ready for Nightfall." Director He Jun's voice came through the comm again. "Admiral, the dark energy levels are dropping. The system worked better than we hoped, but we drained the generators. It will take time to recharge." "How long?" "Months, maybe years." Taiwan nodded slowly. "Then we have work to do." As night fell across Earth, people celebrated their survival. But in command centers and government offices, plans were already being made. Project Nightfall had saved them today. Tomorrow, they would need something more. 5 years had passed since Earth defeated the Galactic Concord fleet. The skies above the planet were busy now, filled with ships coming and going. Some carried miners to the asteroid belt. Others transported colonists to Mars, Venus, and moons around Jupiter. The biggest ships went much farther, traveling to stars that people once only dreamed of visiting. The Terran Empire had changed in these 5 years. Using pieces from the destroyed alien ships, humans had learned to build better engines, stronger weapons, and faster computers. Cities gleamed with new technology. Everyone had enough food and medicine. There were jobs for all who wanted them, mostly making things needed for space travel. On the research station Prometheus, which orbited Earth like a small metal moon, physicist Jai-Ho bent over her workstation. The room was filled with humming machines and glowing screens. Jai-Ho had been 26 when the aliens attacked. Now at 31, she led the most important science team in human history. "It's happening again," she said, pointing at a screen showing swirls of purple and black energy. "The third rift this month." Fleet Commander Su-min stood next to her, arms crossed. He had fought in the battle against the Concord, and now commanded Earth's growing space fleet. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes looked tired. He hadn't slept much lately. "Where is this one?" he asked. "Near Saturn," Jai-Ho said, "bigger than the others." The screen showed what looked like a tear in space itself, a place where stars didn't shine right. It was beautiful and scary at the same time. "Are these rifts dangerous?" Su-min asked, leaning closer to the screen. "Should we keep ships away?" Jai-Ho shook her head, her eyes bright with excitement. "The opposite. These rifts are the most important discovery in human history." She tapped on her keyboard, bringing up new images. "Remember Project Nightfall? The dark energy weapon that saved us?" Su-min nodded. Everyone remembered Nightfall. "Well, it did more than destroy the Concord ships. It changed space itself, creating these rifts." Jai-Ho pointed to the screen. "They're doorways, Commander. Doorways to other places, maybe even other times or dimensions." Su-min looked doubtful. "You're saying we can travel through them?" "We already sent probes through the first 2. Jai-Ho smiled. "One came back with metal we've never seen before. The other brought back plants that can grow without sunlight." She pulled up another screen showing strange blue plants growing in a sealed room. Think about what this means. We can get resources from places no one else can reach. We can learn things no one else knows. Su Min rubbed his chin. The Concord would kill to have this technology. They would, Jai Ho agreed. But they don't have it. We do. The next day, Earth's leaders gathered in the Global Council chamber in New Geneva. The room was round, with seats for representatives from all nations. At the center stood a large holographic display currently showing the rifts near Saturn. General Hyunwoo, a tall man with gray at his temples, addressed the council. 5 years ago, he had opposed Jai Ho's dark energy research, calling it too dangerous. Now he was one of her strongest supporters. Dr. Jai Ho's team has confirmed that these rifts are stable and can be controlled, he said. We can use them to gather resources beyond our imagination. A council member raised her hand. What about the Concord? Won't they return? Our scouts have detected no sign of them, General Hyunwoo replied. But yes, they will likely return someday. That's why we must use this time wisely. He gestured, and the hologram changed to show Earth's new fleet. 50 ships, each built with technology learned from the Concord wrecks. More were being built every month. We are no longer the easy target we were 5 years ago, the general continued. We have established colonies on 7 planets in nearby star systems. Our mining operations in the asteroid belt produce more metal in a day than all of Earth did in a year before the attack. A murmur of approval swept through the council. And now, he said, with these rifts, we can advance even faster. If what Dr. Jai Ho has discovered is true, we will soon be able to protect ourselves from whatever the Concord might send next. 3 months later, the first human ship designed to travel through a rift was ready. The TSS Explorer was smaller than most Navy vessels, but packed with sensors and scientific equipment. Jai Ho herself would lead the mission. On the day of launch, she stood on the observation deck of Prometheus with Su Min, watching as the Explorer's engines glowed to life. Are you sure about this? Su Min asked. We could send more probes first. Jai Ho shook her head. Probes can only tell us so much. We need to see with human eyes. The Explorer's signal came through. Ready for departure. Jai Ho touched Su Min's arm lightly. Don't worry. I'll be back in 3 days with enough data to keep my team busy for years. As she walked toward the shuttle that would take her to the Explorer, Su Min called after her. The rifts? Can the Concord create them too? Jai Ho paused. No. Our analysis of their weapons showed they had no understanding of dark energy. That's why we beat them. She smiled. And that's why, when they return, we'll be ready. 2 weeks later, the Explorer returned not just with data, but with something more valuable. A new metal that could absorb energy weapons and minerals that could power cities for decades. News of the discovery spread across the Terran Empire, bringing hope and pride. In 5 short years, humanity had gone from nearly being enslaved to becoming a rising power in space. Colony ships set out every week. The military grew stronger. The rifts offered endless possibilities. The empire that had nearly fallen was now rising faster than anyone could have imagined. But somewhere out in the vast galaxy, the Concord was surely planning its return. The diplomatic ship Harmony slipped quietly into orbit around Proxima Centauri IV. The planet below was beautiful. Oceans of deep purple and landmasses covered in silver-leafed forests. But Ambassador Daesung wasn't here to admire the view. He was here to make history. Approaching the landing zone, said the pilot. No Concord patrols detected. Daesung nodded. This mission was risky. Proxima Centauri IV was technically under Concord control, though the alien rulers rarely visited this far-flung world. That's why he had chosen it as their first contact point. The ship landed in a clearing outside the main luminary settlement. The luminary were the native species of this world. Tall, thin beings with iridescent skin that seemed to glow from within. They had once been great builders and artists before the Concord arrived centuries ago. Dae Sung stepped out of the ship with just 2 guards. They had decided a small group would seem less threatening. He carried no weapons, only a small device that would translate his words. A group of luminary waited at the edge of the clearing. Their leader stepped forward, towering over the humans at nearly 8 feet tall. "Why have you come?" the luminary asked. "The Concord forbids visitors." Dae Sung bowed respectfully. "I am Ambassador Dae Sung of the Terran Empire. We come in peace and friendship." Terrans. The luminary's inner light pulsed brighter. The ones who destroyed the Concord fleet. Word had spread, even to this distant world. "Good. Yes," Dae Sung said. "We refuse to submit to the Concord. And we believe you and other species deserve the same choice." The luminary leader studied him for a long moment. "Come, we will talk, but quickly. Concord sensors may detect your ship." They followed the luminary into a large underground chamber, hidden beneath what looked like an ordinary hill. Inside, more luminary waited. Their glow provided all the light needed. "I am Elder Lum," said the leader. "Speak your piece, Terran." Dae Sung activated a small projector that showed images of Earth and human colonies. 5 years ago, the Concord tried to force us to join them. We refused and defended ourselves. Since then, we have grown stronger. We have technology that can match theirs. Lum's eyes narrowed. "If you are so strong, why come to us? We have nothing to offer." "That's not true," Dae Sung said gently. "We've studied the history of your people. Before the Concord came, the luminary were known throughout this sector for your architecture and art. Your people built wonders." "That was long ago," Lum said bitterly. "The Concord takes our best workers for their projects. They take our resources. They leave us just enough to survive." Dae Sung nodded. "And they do the same to many worlds. That's why we're here. The Terran Empire offers friendship and alliance. Together, we can stand against oppression." "You speak of war against the Concord?" Lum asked, alarmed. "We speak of freedom," Dae Sung replied. "For all species, the choice to determine your own future." The luminaries spoke among themselves in their own language, their skin flashing in patterns Dae Sung couldn't understand. Finally, Lum turned back to him. "What exactly do you propose?" 3 months later, Ambassador Dae Sung stood before the Terran Alliance Council. Representatives from 7 species sat around the table: humans, luminary, and 5 other formerly subjugated races. Each had joined after quiet diplomatic missions, like the one to Proxima Centauri IV. "The alliance grows stronger each day," Dae Sung reported. "More species reach out to us in secret, tired of Concord rule." Admiral Ta-1, now commander of all Terran forces, nodded approvingly. "Good work, Ambassador. But we must move carefully. The Concord has been quiet since our victory, but they're still powerful." Fleet Intelligence Officer Min Su raised her hand. She was young for her position, but brilliant at finding patterns in data. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the communications we've intercepted from Concord ships. There's something disturbing in them." She activated the main screen, showing strange symbols and text. These messages contain references to approval from something called the Architects. At first, I thought it was just a department or group within the Concord government. But now I'm certain. The Concord isn't the real power. They're controlled by an ancient species called the Architects. A murmur ran through the council chamber. "Can you tell us anything about these Architects?" Admiral Ta-1 asked. Min Su shook her head. "Very little. They stay hidden. They seem to give orders, but rarely appear in person. The Concord fears them greatly." Elder Lum of the Luminary spoke up, his voice soft but clear. "In our oldest stories, there are tales of beings who came before the Concord. Beings who could shape stars and move planets. We thought they were just myths." "They're real," Min Su said, "and I believe they're the true threat we face." The council fell silent, considering this new information. A week later, the Alliance made its first bold move. Intelligence had discovered a mining colony in the Rigel system, where workers from 3 different species were being forced to extract rare minerals. The conditions were brutal, with many dying each month from exhaustion or accidents. A small fleet of Terran ships, accompanied by vessels from their new allies, entered the system quickly. The few Concord guards were caught by surprise. The operation took less than 6 hours. All workers freed, all guards captured, all mining equipment either taken or destroyed. As the Terran ships prepared to leave with the freed workers, a strange transmission cut through all communication channels. The voice was deep and seemed to echo, as if coming from a vast empty space. Terrans, you continue to interfere in matters beyond your understanding. The destruction of our fleet was tolerated as an anomaly. This direct action against Concord interests will not be. You have no idea what you've awakened. The architects will not tolerate this interference. The message ended as suddenly as it had begun. On the bridge of the lead ship, Captain Jun-Ho looked to his communications officer. "Could you trace that?" "No, sir," she replied, hands shaking slightly. "It came from everywhere, and nowhere at once." Jun-Ho opened a channel to Earth. "Admiral Ta-1, we completed the mission successfully, but received a direct threat. I believe we've finally gotten the attention of these architects. Millions of light years away, in a place hidden between the stars, beings of ancient power gathered. For thousands of years, they had guided the Concord from the shadows, using them to maintain order in the galaxy. Now, for the first time in millennia, something had disrupted their plans. The humans must be dealt with, one said. They give hope to the lesser species. They have weapons we do not understand, another replied. We must learn more before we strike. There is no time, said a third. Already 7 worlds have joined them. If this rebellion spreads, the eldest of them spoke last, its voice like the dying of stars. Prepare the Dreadnoughts. We will crush this defiance ourselves. The warning came at dawn Earth time. Sensors at the edge of Terran territory detected massive energy readings. Then they appeared, 7 enormous ships unlike anything humans had ever seen. Each was the size of a large city, shaped like dark metal mountains floating in space. These were the Dreadnoughts of the architects, ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy from the shadows for thousands of years. They're not trying to hide, said the young officer who first spotted them. Her voice shook as she reported to Fleet Command. Within an hour, the Terran War Council gathered in the deep underground bunker beneath New Geneva. Admiral Ta-1 stood at the head of the table, his face grim but determined. Around him sat military leaders, scientists, and representatives from the 7 allied species who had joined the Terran cause. The architects have finally shown themselves, Ta-1 said, pointing to the holographic display showing the massive enemy ships. This is what we've been preparing for since the day we defeated the Concord fleet. Jai-Ho stepped forward. In the years since discovering the quantum rifts, she had become the head of Terran weapons research. Her work had transformed humanity's defenses. Their ships are powerful, but we've studied the Concord technology and learned much, she said. The architects' vessels run on neural networks. Basically, their ships think like giant brains. These networks operate on quantum principles. She brought up diagrams showing the internal workings of the enemy ships, based on data gathered from captured Concord vessels. And quantum systems are vulnerable to dark energy disruption, she continued. Just like we used Nightfall to defeat the Concord, we can use our new weapons to target these neural networks specifically. General Hyun-Woo frowned. These ships are much larger than the Concord vessels. Will our weapons be strong enough? Jai-Ho nodded confidently. We've been improving the technology for years, and we have something they don't expect. Our special fleet. The hologram shifted to show the pride of the Terran Navy. 50 ships built with technology from beyond the quantum rifts. They were smaller than traditional vessels, but much faster and equipped with weapons that could channel dark energy with precision. We need to draw them into position, Admiral Ta-1 said. Our trap is ready, but they must enter it willingly. Elder Lum of the Luminary spoke up, his skin glowing brighter with concern. The architects are ancient and wise. They will suspect a trap. Yes, Tadwan agreed, which is why we must make them angry enough to make mistakes. The plan was set. As the architects' dreadnoughts moved deeper into Terran space, a small fleet of Earth's fastest ships approached them. Too small to be a real threat, but enough to get attention. Captain Sunmei commanded the lid ship. Her orders were simple but dangerous. Provoke the architects, then run. Attention unknown vessels, she transmitted. You have entered Terran Alliance territory without permission. State your purpose or withdraw immediately. The response came in a voice that seemed to echo from an empty void. We are the architects. We have guided the galaxy since before your species learned to make fire. Your defiance ends today. Surrender your worlds and technologies to us, and your deaths will be quick. Sunmist smiled grimly. I'm afraid we must decline your generous offer. The Terran Alliance does not surrender to bullies, no matter how old they are. There was a pause, as if the architects were surprised by this disrespect. You will regret your insolence, the voice finally replied. The lead dreadnought fired a weapon that sent a purple beam slicing through space. It missed Sunmi's ship by inches. Deliberately, she suspected. A warning shot. Now would be a good time to run, Sunmai told her crew. Her small fleet turned and raced away, heading directly toward the trap zone near Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The massive dreadnoughts followed, exactly as planned. They moved with surprising speed for their size, clearly eager to crush these impudent humans. Admiral Tawan watched from his command ship hidden behind Europa. They're taking the bait, he said. All ships prepare. Remember your training. As the architect's dreadnoughts entered the trap zone, Tawan gave the signal. Hidden throughout the area were thousands of special mines, devices that looked like small asteroids but contained dark energy generators. They activated simultaneously. Space itself seemed to ripple and distort. The neural networks of the dreadnoughts faltered as dark energy interfered with their quantum functions. At the same time, the hidden Terran fleet emerged from behind Europa and other moons. The battle that followed was unlike anything seen in the galaxy's history. Terran ships, nimble and quick, darted around the massive dreadnoughts like bees attacking bears. The dark energy weapons fired precise beams that didn't try to destroy the huge ships, impossible with their size and shields, but instead targeted specific points where the neural networks were exposed. The architects fought back with terrible weapons, beams that could vaporize smaller ships instantly, gravity weapons that crushed everything nearby, missiles that split into thousands of deadly fragments. Several Terran vessels were destroyed in the first minutes, but the architects were not fighting at full strength. The dark energy mines continued to disrupt their systems, making their mighty weapons fire too slow or miss their targets. For the first time in thousands of years, the ancient beings faced an enemy they could not easily defeat. From the flagship of the architects came another transmission. This resistance is futile. You cannot stand against us. We have ruled the stars since your ancestors lived in caves. Admiral Tawan responded calmly. You think we haven't been preparing. We've been ready since the day you threatened our world. You hid behind the Concord, using them to do your dirty work. Now face us directly. The battle intensified. 3 Terran ships converged on one dreadnought, firing dark energy beams at the same weak point. The massive ship shuddered, then went dark as its neural network collapsed. It drifted powerless in space, the first defeat of an architect vessel in millennia. Seeing this, the architects concentrated their fire on Jaiho's science vessel, somehow sensing she was behind the dark energy weapons. 3 beams converged on her location. At the last second, a luminary ship dove in front of the beams, sacrificing itself to save Jaiho. Elder Lum had come to fight alongside his new allies. The tide turned. 2 more dreadnoughts lost power. Another suffered damage to its main weapons. The remaining 3 began to pull back, clearly shocked by this unexpected resistance. "They're retreating," reported Sunmai, her voice showing disbelief and joy. For the first time in thousands of years, the architects tasted defeat. Their remaining vessels gathered their damaged companions and fled, jumping to hyperspace with a flash that temporarily blinded all sensors. In their wake, they left the wreckage of their finest ship, the one whose neural network had completely failed, a prize of immense value for Terran scientists. On the bridge of his command ship, Admiral Ta-1 allowed himself a small smile. "Send word to Earth and all our allies. We have won the first battle against the architects, but this war has only just begun." 6 months after the Great Battle, the Terran Empire had grown stronger than ever. 23 alien species had joined the Alliance, all former slaves of the Concord. Ships from Earth now traveled freely through space that once belonged to the architects. Freedom was spreading across the stars. On the neutral planet of Vega Prime, a grand meeting hall had been built just for this day. The walls were made of clear crystal that showed the stars outside. Leaders from all the allied species gathered here to meet with the unthinkable, an architect who had come to talk peace. Admiral Ta-1 stood with President Yun-hee as the architect entered. Unlike the other aliens they had met, this being was almost beautiful. Tall and slender with skin that seemed to contain galaxies within it, moving and shifting in patterns of stars and nebulae. This was Emissary Zol, speaker for the architects. "I bring greetings from the Council of Architects," Zol said. The voice was like music, nothing like the threatening sounds they had heard during the battle. "For 10,000 years, we have guided the galaxy through the Concord. Never in that time have we faced a force like yours." President Yun-hee stepped forward. She was in her 60s now, with silver hair and a face that showed both strength and kindness. "We did not seek war. We only wanted freedom." "And you have earned it," Zol replied. "We recognize your empire as equals. We propose a truce between our peoples." Murmurs spread through the gathered leaders. No one had expected the mighty architects to offer peace so quickly. "Why should we trust you?" asked Admiral Ta-1. "You tried to enslave us. You attacked without mercy." Zol's skin darkened slightly, stars dimming within it. "We have ruled for millennia because we believed lesser species needed guidance. You have proven this belief wrong." And the architect hesitated. "We have seen your weapons. We do not wish to face them again." Later that day, while diplomats from both sides worked on the details of the peace agreement, Jeho called an urgent meeting. In a small room away from the main hall, she showed Admiral Ta-1 and President Yun-hee data from her latest research. "Our dark energy technology is more dangerous than we thought," she said, pointing to charts and numbers on her screen. "Each time we use it, especially through the rifts, it weakens the fabric of space-time." Tai-1 frowned. "What does that mean exactly?" Jeho took a deep breath. "It means if we continue expanding at this rate, using the rifts and dark energy weapons freely, we risk cosmic collapse. Not just here, but across vast regions of space." "How bad would that be?" President Yun-hee asked. "Entire star systems could vanish. Space itself might tear open permanently." Jeho looked at them, both with serious eyes. "We have incredible power now, but using it without care could destroy everything." The three sat in silence, thinking about what this meant. Finally, President Yun-hee spoke. "We must bring this to the full council. All our allies need to know the risk." The next morning, leaders from all 23 allied species gathered, along with Emissary Zol. Jeho explained her findings to them all. "So you see," she concluded, "we face a choice. We can continue our rapid growth, using this technology to become the dominant power in the galaxy. But if we do, we risk destroying the very space we live in." Elder Lum of the Luminary stood up. "What is the alternative?" "We limit our use of the technology," Jeho said. "We find safer ways to travel and defend ourselves. It will mean slower growth, but sustainable growth." Debates raged for hours. Some leaders argued they should use their advantage while they had it. Others feared the consequences Jai-Ho had described. As the sun set outside the crystal walls, President Yun-He rose to address them all. 7 years ago, the Concord came to Earth and demanded we bow to them. We refused because we value freedom, not just for ourselves, but for all sentient beings. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each species' representatives. If we continue down this path of unlimited power and expansion, if we ignore the dangers because we want to be strong, then we become conquerors. We become no better than those we fought against. She turned to face Emissary Zol. The architects ruled through fear and control for thousands of years. Look where it led, to war and suffering. We can choose a different path. Zol's skin brightened, stars glowing within. What do you propose, Madam President? A true federation of equals, one where all species have a voice, where we share technology safely and work together to solve problems like the dark energy rifts. Even with the architects, if they are willing to join as equals, not rulers. The room fell silent as everyone considered her words. One by one, the leaders stood to show their support. Even Emissary Zol rose, towering over the others. The architects have much to learn from younger species, it seems, Zol said. We accept your proposal. 3 weeks later, Admiral Ta-One stood on a platform in the Great Hall as the new Galactic Charter was signed. One by one, leaders from all species, including an architect, placed their marks on the document. It established the new Galactic Federation, based on freedom and mutual respect. As he watched, Ta-One thought about the day, 7 years ago, when Earth had stood alone against the Concord fleet. They had been desperate then, with only Project Nightfall standing between them and slavery or destruction. No one could have imagined where that act of defiance would lead. Jai-Ho joined him on the platform. Not what we expected when we first used the dark energy weapon, is it? She asked. Ta-One shook his head. We thought we were just saving our world. Instead, we changed the galaxy. For the better, I think, Jai-Ho said, watching as former enemies now shook hands or tentacles or wings in friendship. President Yun-He completed the signing and raised the charter for all to see. Cheers erupted from every species. The consequences of Earth's refusal to bow had indeed changed the galaxy forever, not through dominance or conquest, but through courage that inspired others to stand for themselves. And now, that same courage would guide them to build something that had never existed before, a galaxy where freedom and cooperation replaced fear and control. As the celebrations continued around him, Ta-One looked up through the crystal ceiling at the stars above. Somewhere out there, new worlds and species waited to be discovered. But this time, they would be greeted not as subjects, but as potential friends and allies. The Terran Empire had refused to bow, and the galaxy was better for it. The end.